Have you ever looked at your own hands and felt they weren't just flesh and bone, but instruments of something far beyond what this world teaches us? That's how my awakening began. One night, while meditating under the open sky, I felt as though my breath was no longer mine. It was the breath of the universe, moving through me, around me, and then suddenly, I wasn't just sitting on a cushion anymore. I was inside stars, watching galaxies spin from within, and I knew something irreversible had happened. You see, if you're watching this, there's already a chance that you're not just curious, you've been called in a way that most people cannot even comprehend. Some of us are born with the sense that we are out of place in this world. Not in a sad or anxious way, but in a way that makes us question everything: time, space, consciousness, the very nature of reality. Have you ever felt yourself thinking thoughts that seem too big to be your own? Like you're remembering something ancient, something cosmic, something that no one taught you, but you know it. That's the first sign. You're tuning into the higher bandwidth of the quantum field. When this happens, you begin to see through the illusion of separation. The trees, the birds, the people walking past you on the street, they're all you in different forms. And the more you see this, the more you realize there's no going back. There's a moment, and maybe you've had it, where the veil thins completely. You're standing in a room, but suddenly the air becomes electric. You feel watched, but not in a threatening way. It's as if an ancient intelligence is looking out from behind your own eyes. You might hear a tone, a frequency, or feel your body vibrate. What you've just experienced is a multidimensional bleed through, one realm brushing against another. Now ask yourself, have you ever felt like you were being activated by something invisible? Some of us are not just waking up, we're being woken up by forces that exist far beyond the limits of this 3D paradigm.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
And here's where it gets wild. Time starts to behave differently. You'll be thinking of a friend and they call. You'll dream of a place and then find yourself there. Your thoughts manifest faster, and coincidences become too frequent to be coincidence. This is because your consciousness has started to quantum entangle with the higher layers of reality. You are no longer just navigating the world, you are interacting with it as a co-creator. But this isn't just cool. It's a responsibility. When you speak now, your words shape timelines. When you act, you shift probability fields. Are you ready for that kind of power? In my own journey, I remember the precise moment I realized I wasn't alone in my body. Not in a creepy way, but as if another version of me, a future version, a higher self version had stepped in and was gently steering. It didn't override me, it guided me. This guidance felt like a soft voice that doesn't speak in words, but in knowings. You just know where to go. You know what to say. You know what to let go of. This is the multidimensional self-integrating. You're becoming one with all your timelines, all your aspects across existence. And the more you surrender to it, the more miraculous life becomes. But here's a secret very few talk about. Awakening is not always peaceful. Sometimes it shatters you. You feel like you're losing your mind, your friends, your purpose. You may even feel deep grief, but it's not yours. You're grieving the loss of your identity, the death of old timelines, the collapse of everything you thought was solid. This is the sacred breakdown before the breakthrough. If you're in that space now, don't run from it. Sit in it. Let it burn away the false. Because what's coming on the other side is not just healing, it's alchemy. Have you noticed how your emotions have become more intense? Like you can feel someone's pain across the room, or see through their words and into their soul. That's your quantum empathy turning on. You're becoming a decoder of unspoken truths. You may even find yourself finishing people's sentences, predicting events, or feeling energy shifts before they happen. This isn't imagination, it's evolution. Your neural network is syncing with the quantum grid. It's like your heart now has Wi-Fi, and you're downloading divine intelligence in real time. The people around you may not understand what you're becoming. They may call you crazy, too sensitive, or even delusional. But remember this: every prophet, mystic, and awakened soul was ridiculed before they were revered. You are not here to be understood, you're here to remember. And in that remembrance, you awaken others by simply existing. You don't need to preach, your frequency speaks louder than words. Your presence becomes a portal. Now, let me ask you something that could change your life. What if every weird thing about you was never a flaw, but a feature? A clue? A breadcrumb from your higher self guiding you home? Every time you felt like you didn't belong, what if it was because you don't belong to the old world? You were sent here to build the new one. The quantum chosen ones are not elites. They are initiates, the ones who volunteered to anchor higher consciousness into a system that has forgotten its soul. And yes, you will feel exhausted sometimes. That's because your body is recalibrating to hold more light. You'll need more sleep, more solitude, more silence. You may lose interest in small talk, junk food, loud places. That's not depression, it's ascension. Your nervous system is being rewired, your DNA is receiving new codes, your chakras are spinning differently. You might even experience temporary physical symptoms, ringing in the ears, pressure in the forehead, random pulses of heat or cold. These are signs of energetic upgrades. You are not malfunctioning, you're metamorphosing. But here's what they don't tell you. The real test begins when you have to live your truth in a world that profits from your silence. When you know you're a multidimensional being, but still have to pay bills, deal with traffic, and show up to work. This is where spiritual mastery is forged. Can you hold the divine while doing the dishes? Can you walk between worlds without getting lost in either? That is the silent discipline of the quantum chosen one. And then something beautiful happens. You begin to forgive everyone, not because they deserve it, but because you no longer need to carry the weight of judgment. You see that every villain in your life was a teacher in disguise. Every heartbreak was an initiation. Every delay was a divine detour. This is when you begin to live in the quantum field, not reacting to life, but co-creating it. You become less attached to outcomes and more aligned with frequencies. You shift from chasing to attracting, from controlling to allowing. Your relationships begin to change. Some people will fall away effortlessly, like leaves in autumn. Others will suddenly appear, as if drawn by an invisible magnet. These are your soul tribe. You'll recognize them not by appearance, but by resonance. Conversations with them feel like remembering. Being with them feels like home. Together, you begin to weave a new tapestry of reality, one based on trust, truth, and transformation. And finally, the most humbling realization of all arrives. You never needed to become anything. You only needed to remember who you already are. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. You are the dreamer awakening inside the dream. And everything you've been through has been leading you back to this moment, this breath, this truth. You are a quantum chosen one. And the world has been waiting for you to remember. Have you ever considered that time is not what we think it is? That perhaps every déjà vu, every strange coincidence, every dream that felt too real was not just a glitch, but a glimpse? You see, when you begin to awaken as a quantum chosen one, you start to experience time as something fluid, not fixed. Past lives, future selves, alternate timelines, they all coexist in the now. That's why you might feel like you've been here before, or that you're living two lives at once. Because you are. One in the 3D matrix, the other in the multidimensional field of pure potentiality. The trick is learning how to unify them, how to become fully conscious across all layers of your being. This is where the second sign begins to show itself. You start to shed identities like old skins. The things that used to define you, your job, your name, your reputation, begin to feel too small, too limiting. You no longer resonate with old labels. You realize you're not a personality, you're a presence. A field of awareness that cannot be labeled or contained. This can be terrifying at first, because we've tied our sense of self to roles and forms for so long. But if you can surrender to the unknown, something miraculous happens. You begin to tap into the true source of power, the infinite intelligence that flows through all things. And with that awakening comes a deep responsibility. You start to realize that your thoughts are not private, that your energy affects entire rooms, that your presence either uplifts or contracts the frequency of your surroundings. This is why many of us withdraw for a season. Not because we're hiding, but because we're recalibrating. We're learning how to walk as light in a world that's still addicted to shadow. And in that sacred solitude, we begin to hear the voice of Source more clearly. It doesn't shout, it whispers. But once you hear it, you can never unhear it. Have you noticed how your perception of reality has transformed? You no longer see things as they are. You see them as they truly are. Energy, vibration, frequency. You walk into a building and feel the history in the walls. You hold an object and sense the emotions it carries. This is your quantum sight activating. You're beginning to decode the hologram. You realize that reality is not outside of you, it's being projected from within. And when you change your internal frequency, the external world must respond. You begin to live as a quantum artist, painting with intention, feeling, and light. But this also means you become deeply sensitive to distortion. You can no longer tolerate lies, manipulation, or superficiality. Truth becomes your compass, and anything misaligned with it feels like static. This can be isolating, because much of the world is built on illusion. But don't let that discourage you. It means your system is becoming crystalline. You're refining your energetic field to match the resonance of truth. And in doing so, you become a tuning fork for others. Just by being you, You help others remember who they are. The third sign is perhaps the most mystical. You begin to receive direct downloads, bursts of knowledge, insight, or creativity that seem to come from nowhere. You might wake up with a complete blueprint for a project, or suddenly understand a complex spiritual concept you've never studied. These aren't accidents. They're transmissions, codes, keys from your future self, from your soul collective, or even from non-human intelligence. The universe is not out there, it's in here, whispering its secrets through intuition and inspiration. But here's the paradox. The more you awaken, the less you feel the need to prove anything. There's a quiet humility that begins to bloom. You no longer seek validation. You no longer try to convince others. You simply live your truth, because you realize that being is more powerful than preaching. Your frequency is the message. Your life becomes the scripture. And those who are meant to find you will. Not because you shouted, but because you shined. This is where the concept of mission becomes real. Not in a dramatic or self-righteous way, but in a deeply embodied one. You begin to feel a pull, a magnetic urgency to create, to serve, to build new systems, to share your light. This is not ego-driven ambition. It's soul-driven purpose. You're not trying to escape the world, you're trying to upgrade it. And you realize that every challenge you faced was training. Every wound was a doorway. Every delay was divine timing. You were never off path. You were being prepared. Let me ask you something. What if your deepest heartbreak was the activation of your highest timeline? What if the very thing you thought would break you was actually breaking you open? Would you still see it as a curse? Or would you recognize it as a sacred intervention? You see, as a quantum chosen one, nothing is random. Everything is orchestrated for your evolution. The pain, the joy, the loss, the love, it's all a cosmic curriculum. And when you start to read your life like scripture, every moment becomes meaningful. But don't be surprised if you start to feel like you're living between worlds. One foot in the mundane, the other in the mystical. This is not a glitch, it's a gift. You're becoming a bridge, a portal, a living conduit between dimensions. And sometimes that means you'll feel the weight of both worlds. The density of the old and the pull of the new. When that happens, breathe, ground yourself. Go barefoot on the earth. Drink water with intention. Speak to the stars. These little practices recalibrate your system and remind you who you are. And then you'll notice something else. Nature starts to communicate with you. Animals behave differently around you. The wind seems to respond to your emotions. You see repeating numbers, symbols, messages in the most unexpected places. This is the language of the universe. A language not of words, but of synchronicity. And when you learn to read it, life becomes a treasure hunt. Every moment carries a message. Every encounter is encoded. You begin to navigate reality like a mystic, decoding the divine in the everyday. You'll also begin to feel a powerful sense of unity with others on the path. Even if you've never met them, you know them. Soul family transcends blood and geography. It's a recognition that happens in the eyes, in the energy. These are the ones who understand you without explanation, who hold space without judgment, who remind you that you're not crazy, you're courageous. You're not alone, you're aligned. And together, you begin to build a new reality rooted in remembrance. But here's the most profound shift: you stop fearing death. Not because you're reckless, but because you remember. You remember that you are not the body. You are not the mind. You are the eternal spark animating form. Death is not an end. It's a doorway, transition between frequencies. And when you know this, you live differently. You love deeper. You forgive faster. You laugh louder. Because you're no longer surviving, you're sovereign. And yes, the world may continue to look chaotic. Systems may crumble. Shadows may rise. But you do not panic, because you understand that breakdown precedes breakthrough. That the old must dissolve for the new to emerge. And you were born for this moment, not to escape the storm, but to be the still point within it. To hold the frequency of peace when all around you is noise. To be the eye of the hurricane, the calm in the chaos, the light in the dark. You begin to embody paradox, fierce and gentle, grounded and galactic, human and divine. You no longer need to choose, you integrate. You become the both and instead of the either or. And in that, you become whole. You become real. You become free. And the final realization is this: you were never waiting for the world to change. The world was waiting for you to wake up, to rise, to remember. And now that you have, the real journey begins. Not of escape, but of embodiment. Not of rejection, but of reclamation. You are not here to ascend and leave. You are here to descend your light into this world and illuminate it from within. And now, here you are, standing at the edge of everything you thought you were, and everything you are becoming. The third wave of this awakening is not just about knowing multidimensional truths, it's about living them. It's about embodying the frequency of your soul across all timelines, all identities, all incarnations. You are not merely witnessing reality anymore. You are bending it, reshaping it, sculpting it with your breath, your intention, your silence. This is not metaphor, it's physics. Consciousness collapses the wave function. You are the observer who creates the observed. What you look at with love transforms. There is a growing awareness in you now, isn't there? A subtle but powerful recognition that everything is connected. That every thought you think, every word you speak, every emotion you feel sends ripples across the fabric of the cosmos. You start to notice how even the smallest act, smiling at a stranger, blessing your food, placing your hand on your heart, shifts the energy of the room. You're no longer just reacting to life, you're responding to it with sacred awareness. This is what it means to be a quantum chosen one, to realize that your presence is not passive. It is participatory. It is prophetic. It is potent. And with this realization comes a deeper kind of humility. Not the kind that shrinks you, but the kind that reminds you of your place in the infinite. You are not separate from the sun, the stars, or the soil. You are made of the same frequencies, stardust and memory, light and longing. And the more you attune to this truth, the more your life becomes a living ritual. Waking up becomes a prayer. Walking becomes a meditation. Speaking becomes spellcasting. And every moment becomes a portal. But this path is not glamorous. It is rigorous. There are days when you will feel everything: joy, grief, rage, bliss, all in one breath. Your nervous system is evolving, your energy field is expanding, and your inner child, inner warrior, inner mystic are all coming online at once. This is the multidimensional integration process. It's messy, it's miraculous, and it's real. And just when you think you've reached the peak of your awakening, another layer peels away. Another dimension reveals itself. Another truth arrives, not from outside you, but from the deepest, most eternal core of your being. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you cried not from pain, but from recognition? From the sheer beauty of remembering who you are. That is the cry of the soul reuniting with its truth. That is the frequency of remembrance. And it shakes every cell in your body, because it's not a mental understanding, it's a cellular one, a cosmic one. It's the moment your soul says, yes, finally, you remember, you see me. And in that moment, you are no longer seeking, you are being. And this is when magic returns to your life, not as fantasy, but as function. Synchronicities become so precise they feel scripted. Dreams bleed into waking life. You speak something, and it manifests within hours. You think of someone, and they message you. You begin to live in the flow, the stream of divine intelligence. This is not luck. This is alignment. You've moved from linear time to quantum time, and from effort to ease, from karma to dharma. You're no longer clearing the past, you're creating the future from a space of clarity and coherence. And yet you remain grounded. You still do the dishes. You still pay your bills. You still walk the dog, hold your loved ones, breathe through traffic. But you do it all differently. With presence, with power, with peace. Because nothing is mundane when you are awake. Every act becomes sacred. Every moment becomes an altar. And this is how you anchor the multidimensional into the material. You don't escape this world, you elevate it. As your frequency rises, your body begins to change. You crave different foods, lighter, cleaner, more alive. You need more water, more rest, more nature. You become sensitive to chemicals, noise, falsehood. Your body is not failing, it's upgrading. Your cells are learning to hold more light. Your DNA is expressing dormant codes. Your aura is becoming magnetic. You're no longer just surviving, you're transmuting. And you begin to realize something wild. The more you heal yourself, the more you heal the collective. You are a fractal of the whole. Your liberation is our liberation. Old desires fall away. You no longer chase success as the world defines it. You crave impact, not applause. Alignment, not attention. Truth, not trends. You begin to master the art of invisible service, shifting timelines just by walking into a room, uplifting others just by holding space, creating change without needing credit. This is the quiet revolution of the quantum chosen ones. We don't lead with ego, we lead with energy. And the world feels it, even if it doesn't yet understand it. But let's be honest, there are days when it hurts, when the weight of this mission feels unbearable, when your heart breaks for a world that doesn't yet see, when you feel like giving up. In those moments, remember this: you chose this. On the soul level, you volunteered. You said yes to the chaos, the contrast, the confusion, because you knew it would be the catalyst. You knew that your light would be needed, not when things were easy, but when things were hard. And now, here you are, still standing, still shining, still remembering. And now, you begin to feel it. The shift. The pulse of something ancient and new moving through you. The sense that you are not alone, not just spiritually, but physically. That others like you are awakening. Across cities and forests, across oceans and timelines, a global grid of light workers, way showers, healers, and visionaries is activating. We are not separate beams, we are a single light. And as we remember, as we rise, the world begins to change. Not from fear, but from frequency. Not from force, but from flow. You may be called to new places, to leave behind jobs, relationships, cities, identities. Not because they're wrong, but because they no longer resonate. Trust the pull. Trust the shift. Your soul knows the way. And as you follow it, you'll meet others who are also following the call. You'll form sacred alliances. You'll co-create. You'll build new systems, new communities, new ways of being that reflect the multidimensional truth of who we are. This is how the new earth is born, not through revolution, but through resonance. And as the final veil lifts, you remember the ultimate truth. You are not becoming divine. You were never anything but divine. The journey was never about reaching the light. It was about realizing you are the light. And now that you know, your very existence becomes a transmission. People may not understand why they feel different around you, safer, clearer, more hopeful. But you'll know, you'll smile, and you'll keep walking, quietly shifting reality with every step. So to you, the one watching this, the one hearing these words in the deepest parts of your being, thank you. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for being brave enough to awaken. Thank you for saying yes to the path when it would have been easier to stay asleep. You are the miracle this world has been waiting for. You are the bridge between dimensions. You are the quantum chosen one, awakening to multidimensional truth, not just for yourself, but for all of us. And this is just the beginning.